Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Giannis, Suhail, and Tony. This is our post-match show on Fulham's 2-1 victory against Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. First time ever. First time they beat Spurs on the road since 2013, and Dimitar Berbatov was playing for Fulham. So that tells you how long it's been. Massive victory. So much to talk about in regards to this match. Before we do anything else, I'm going to go to each one of my co-hosts and get their opening thoughts on what they watched. I'll go to you first, Mr. Gold. How are you feeling after this match, and what do you make of this match?
Good afternoon, gents. Yep. Well, look, I mean, it was, it's always a tough place to go to for Fulham anyway. And you go there with trepidation because you're not sure how it's all going to unfold, what sort of Tottenham side's going to turn up and so on. But honestly, Russ, and I know we're going to talk about it, but the way that Silva set us up, the personnel that he started with, just gave us a great foothold and footing in to get the game underway with, and we came out the blocks absolutely flying. I don't know whether that's necessarily because Tottenham didn't start particularly well and we started really well, or a mixture of both. But either way, starting that quickly and that fast, and then taking those chances as quickly as we did, it sort of shocked them. And gave us a great platform to go and stay in the game and ultimately win it.
Okay, excellent. And listen, obviously we're going to talk a lot about the decisions that Marco Silva made, and I'll be the first one to say that he got pretty much everything right, and he deserves a lot of credit. Obviously the players do as well, and we'll go through that during the show. Mr. Janaeus, how are you doing?
I'm good, sir. How you doing?
I am.
Good morning, everybody.
Good.
I thought we were excellent first half. I mean, 3 weeks makes a difference. I mean, Everton, I've not been on since the Everton game, and we were very, very poor that day. I think we can all agree on that. But we got off to a flyer. The lineup was right, and I thought we came out worthy winners. Tottenham can have no complaints about the result.
No, Giannis, they can't. And let me just come back to you. You mentioned the Everton match, and I might reference that during the show. The decisions that Marco made, I think, if you look back at the Everton match, the one match that really stands out as a poor performance-wise, really poor showing, I think his decision in the starting 11 was a factor here, and I think it's a positive factor here. What do you make of that? I'm talking about playing that double pivot, I think was a factor.
I think
back against Everton.
I think I'm going to throw mud at the players for the Everton game. I thought we were in that game. We were second to the first balls, third to the second ball. I mean, we were awful. I mean, we got kicked off the park against Everton, an okay side, but we were dreadful. And we were lamenting that lineups or no lineups, the effort wasn't good enough. And then we turned it around last week against Sunderland, and last night we outworked them, and we outthought them, and we outplayed them. And it goes to show if you put a shift in every game, you can always get results. And whereas we didn't do that against Everton, I thought we did that last night.
Excellent. Good stuff there, Giannis. Suhail, how are you doing? How are you feeling right now?
Oh, great. From a very snowy Toronto. Good morning, everyone. But all I can say is I'm feeling great. I actually, maybe others didn't. I had a good feeling about this game. Spurs have been dreadful at home. They've had some very bad results. I saw them, that game against Arsenal. They looked absolutely hopeless. I really went into this thinking, okay, we could get something from this. I didn't think we'd be up 2-0 in 6 minutes. And we could have been 4-0 up after half an hour. We could have had a penalty. I'm sure we'll talk about this. The media didn't really go into this one too much, but when you watched it back on TV, it was pretty, if Chukwueze had gone down from this earlier,
right,
could have had a penalty. It felt very, very good. Great Fulham first half performance. Bit frustrating second half, but the first half, we were as good as I've seen us all season. And the best sign that you could, or the best signal and the best symbol of our play was, and you were there, Tony, it was, you could hear a pin drop. After about 20 minutes, the Spurs fans were almost completely silent. And it was, you could even hear the Fulham players shouting at times on the TV. It was that good. So very, very good feeling after yesterday's game.
Okay, fantastic. Great way to start the show from the three of you. If you're watching live, please feel free to share your thoughts. I'll try to get to them during the show. So, guys, let's get to my Cottage Talk talking points. I've got a decent amount of them, some really good ones. We have to start with, I think, the most significant one. Obviously, we give a lot of credit to the players. They deserve it. As Giannis said, maybe they were not up for it the way they should have against Everton. They certainly were in this match, but I have to start with talking about Marco Silva. Tony, you and I have talked a lot about Silva's tactics, okay? Marco Silva won the coaching battle. This is actually one of my keys to victory. It pretty much is each and every week because I think it's important that he sets the team up. But it goes way beyond that. Not only did he set the team up correctly with the starting 11 and his tactics on how to attack Tottenham Hotspur, all of his decisions in the second half, I'm talking about the substitutions, he made significant substitutions, in my opinion, that all worked. So he, hands down, won the coaching battle. Thomas Frank, and again, nothing against Thomas Frank, but I think he at this point might own him a little bit.
Yeah, this was a classic Marco Silva performance in my opinion. They completely exploited Tottenham's weaknesses, and Marco Silva identified them very early. He started that really right from the off. As I said, we came out of the box flying, and you could see initially that that Fulham were engaging Tottenham man-to-man, high press. They weren't allowing them time to settle. They unnerved them. And basically what that meant is that it left Fulham a little bit of space, which they used unbelievably well to get their runners in behind. So Chukwueze, Wilson, that managed to exploit those areas. And, as I said, in that period of time, to score those two quick goals so fast, it was almost like an electric shot for Tottenham. They didn't quite know what had hit them. Do you know what I mean? And it was almost as if from that moment, and Suhail's absolutely right. We should have been 4-0 at half time.
Absolutely.
I mean, Chukwueze's hit the post. He's then had that 1v1. And, if those two go in, Tottenham would have been absolutely obliterated and annihilated, and they would never have come back. And that actually would have been a fair reflection on that first half dominance. So, full credit to Marco Silva, but also, Russ, it goes to the point that he actually selected the correct 11 players to start the game. And he finally has got rid of this notion that Fulham can only play with two holding midfield players. And it's made such a difference to us in the final third. Honestly, I can't tell you how massive a difference that has made. And you've seen it from the results that we've had in the last two games. Right. By beating Sunderland last week, and not only beating them, but keeping a clean sheet. And they're no mugs. I know a lot of people thought last week, oh, Sunderland are rubbish. They just had they showed yesterday against Bournemouth that they're not a flash in the pan. They are a good side. And Fulham absolutely dominated them last week as well. So, full credit to Marco Silva for getting it so right yesterday.
I totally agree, Tony. And listen, you keep leading us on to the next talking point. We'll talk about the midfield three next. Why do you keep doing that? Or at least you can read my mind, because that's going to be one of our talking points. Suhail, I want to go to you. And listen, I've been critical of Marco not really changing things up during the match, that he just makes like-for-like changes. But I got to tell you, I thought his changes really affected how Fulham played after Tottenham had a good start to the second half. I think his substitutions were right. I think how he set Fulham up were right. He won this coaching battle. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chris Goodwin in the comments has got it right when he uses the word brave. That's what Marco, he went there, Tottenham Hotspur. He said, you know what? I'm not going back to the Lukic Berger midfield. I'm going to play Iwobi, and we're going to play on the front foot. And he got it bang on. The first half, we were just tearing them to shreds on the break. That's where it was really going badly wrong for Spurs. And then second half, as you say, he won the coaching battle because he realized, we're under the cosh here.
Yep.
I'm going to bring on Sasha Lukic.
Yeah,
Great move, because that solidified everything. And I'm sure we'll get to this. Emil Smith-Rowe played a really big role.
We're going to talk about it. Absolutely.
We'll talk about it. I won't go any further, but he definitely won the coaching battle, definitely got the subs right. And the timing of it too, did very, very well. Very impressed with that yesterday.
Okay, excellent. Giannis, over to you on the coaching battle. Like I said, I do focus on this a lot because I think it matters, especially in the Premier League. It could come down to decisions that the manager makes, but also the players go out and actually have to execute it. I think here the decisions Marco made were huge. My co-hosts agree with me. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree. The last 3 weeks have been distressing, I think, because we've had all this furor about contract extension, yes, no.
Yep.
Can we all just recognise how great a manager this fella is? What he's done in 200 games for this club. I mean, he's had so many injuries to deal with. He's had to deal with the owners, lack of transfer activity, and he's given his best. He's tried to put out a good team every time. And yesterday, you saw the real quality of what he does as a head coach. Heaven help us if he leaves, because who do we want him? Brendan Rodgers. I've been hearing this. We must keep Marcos over. We must keep this man. It is so important that we keep him as our manager. And yesterday was a prime example. He got the lineup right. He got the subs right. He obviously lifted them after the Everton debacle. Remember, he had an international break to deal with. Came back. Poor Jimenez got back on the Thursday morning from Mexico City, and somehow he galvanized them to get ready for Sunderland and had the week to prep. He's an incredible manager, and we must keep him. And I thought yesterday exemplified why we must keep him.
Okay, excellent. Great way to start our talk about Marco Silva, and he'll be a huge theme throughout the show, but the players will as well. Tony, since you led us there, I'm going to go right back to talking about the midfield three, okay? I was thinking about it this morning, and I wanted to pose it to the three of you and get your thoughts on this. Should Marco stick with the starting midfield three moving forward? I mean, I thought, well, you know what? It's okay if he does the double pivot against Man City. I'm starting to change my mind on that because I can see the advantages of being brave, even against a Man City. Maybe this is the way to go, unless you disagree on this. I've been going back and forth thinking on certain occasions the double pivot makes sense. I think it made sense to bring on Lukic later on to calm things down, but to start matches, to get things going, I like this midfield three. I think he should stick with this midfield three of Berga, King, and then, of course, Iwobi as the 8. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think that, we've always approached the Manchester City games with trepidation, every season. We go into those games thinking, right, let's step up defensively. Let's try and be strong and solid and not give them anything. And like I said, we've shown in the last couple of games that actually if you're brave and you take the game to teams and show them little respect in that regard. And I think Manchester City feeling, at the moment, I know a couple of their players have, found a bit of form. Phil Foden's, firing on all cylinders now. And they will be tough opposition. But I'd rather have a go at them than just sit back and wait for things to happen. And absolutely. And ironically, yesterday, in fact, Iwobi was probably our poorest player on the pitch yesterday, in my opinion. I don't think he was as dynamic and as productive as he could have and should have been. But then having said that, Marco Silva, I think, will be looking at the fatigue. I think the players put a lot into yesterday. I think some of them will be feeling still quite leggy and tired, especially Raul, who put in an absolute shift yesterday. So maybe he'll think City, maybe he needs to freshen it up a little bit because of that. So it will be interesting to see, but I definitely wouldn't revert back to two holding midfield players against City because you're just inviting trouble by doing that.
That's why I kind of want to bring that up. Giannis, I want to get your thoughts because I just like the dynamic of these three. Now, I've argued, and Tony and I talked about at some point we would like to see an even more aggressive version of, say, maybe even Iwobi, Smith Rowe, and King all together, which would be very interesting. But I just want to talk about this midfield three. What do you make of it, and how would you feel if that's your midfield three against Man City or any opponent, or would you revert back to type and play the double pivot?
If Iwobi is fit, I would go with the same three against City because they're not the City of old. I mean, yesterday against Leeds United, they were 2 up at half time, and then Farke changed the tactics, and all of a sudden they were on the back foot. They got it back to 2-2. If it wasn't for Foden's late winner, they get a point from City. It's a Tuesday night. It's going to be a packed crowd. You're playing City. The crowd's going to be loud. Have a go. I think the win yesterday is huge because it gives us a free hit on Tuesday.
Exactly.
Just go and have a go at the buggers. Have a go at the buggers and throw anything you want at them. I'd make one big change on Tuesday night, and I'd put Bassi on the bench, and I'd bring Cuenca into Mark Haaland. Every game he's played, he's disciplined in his position. He's really, I think, all they've got to worry about. And I would put in, especially getting ready for the end of the African Nations Cup when we're going to lose them anyway.
Right.
Bring Cuenca in for a game like this. Get maybe Smith Rowe, get him in, freshen the lineup up just a little bit. And let's have a go. If we lose 3-0 and we've had a go with the 3 in the midfield, so be it.
Well, it's funny you say that, Giannis, because I was thinking the same way for this match, right? Because I thought that maybe Tottenham would really take it to Fulham, but they're struggling with their own issues. And we'll talk about that in one of our talking points. But I think that sometimes an aggressive offensive game plan can offset defensive issues, if you set yourself up this way, because we've seen that playing this safe Silva way, which I will call the double pivot, it can work, but I think it limits you more than it helps you. That's just my 2 feelings on that. So I would definitely go with it. To Tony's point, though, he might have to do a little squad rotation. So we shall see because of the match coming up on Tuesday. All right, good stuff. All right. So, Hale, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Let's talk about Samuel Chukwueze. Makes an impact, especially in the first half. I think he faded in the second half, but maybe that is to be expected because he's not played enough football lately. But he had an impact in many ways. What did you make of his performance?
That's an understatement. I think he was electric and he was terrifying the Spurs defenders every time he got the ball. We've already spoken about the fact that he's hit the outside of the post. He had that one-on-one. Chukwueze, and then, as I say, there was an incident in the first half. Van de Ven really saved Spurs bacon. Really did. He was their best player.
He what? By far.
He robbed him. Chukwueze, that was a wonder tackle, that one-on-one where Chukwueze rounded Vicario and was about to tap in, and he took it. But about 5 minutes earlier, Chukwueze had gone down on the left-hand side, made a run and went straight into the box. And I think the mistake that Chukwueze made was not falling over, because when you saw the replays, it looked like there had been contact with his legs, and Van de Ven also handled the ball basically as the ball came off. I thought if he'd gone down and VAR had looked at it, we might well have had a penalty. I think we could have been 4 or 5-0 up at halftime, and it would have been down to Chukwueze's absolute electric pace and skill. I love the guy. I think he's, we paid that amount for Kevin. I think this guy's worth twice as much. He's been brilliant, and impact, as I say, understatement as far as I'm concerned.
Totally agree. And Giannis, I want to get your thoughts on Chukwueze because I thought this was the right decision to start him. Nothing against Kevin. We've talked a lot about Kevin. I think Kevin eventually will come good, but this guy's ready to go. So why not give him a start and do it in reverse? And I think it worked. What did you make of Chukwueze?
Well, he set up Tetty's goal. It was 3 minutes in. That's you're not going to get a bigger impact than that. Less tricks and flicks than Kevin, but much more direct in his play. Gave them absolute fits. I thought in the first half, played very well. He's apparently we can get him with an option to buy for 18.5 million. Marco made a comment in the presser in the middle of that. We've not made a full decision on it. I think really a performance like that should have done the trick. I thought he was outstanding, and he gave us a lot more variation. The game seemed to really flow and move along, whereas Kevin can be a bit stop-start. And as I said, 3 minutes in, he set up Tetty's opener. So hey, what better way to start your first game for Fulham and then set up an opener, within the first 3 minutes?
Can I just ask before you can bring this to Tony? Was that pass by Chukwueze, was that deliberate or was it a misplaced pass? Because the commentators where I was watching were insistent that it was a mistake that somehow accidentally went to Tete. I just don't know I'd love to know what the rest of you, what the three of you think.
No, I don't think it was, because if you look at Bergvall cheated, believing the ball was going to come left, and he went right, so he ended up on one knee. I thought it was a deliberate ball. I don't think he hit it its full pace, but I think it was deliberately aimed to Tati.
Okay, very good.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he definitely meant it, 100%.
Okay, I want to share this comment from Gary. It says, "Hi, gents. Went to the game yesterday over the moon. Silva got it spot on with his selection and tactics. Game should have been over at halftime. We'll definitely talk about that. We've already been talking a little bit about that. Frank looks like he could be the next manager to be sacked. Well, with this crew, with these supporters, yes, I would agree with that, because my whole thing, guys, and I'm going to share my thoughts on Frank in 1 second. Okay, let's see. You know what? Enough, Chris. I don't need to be sharing stuff. Why am I sharing stuff about Liverpool? Oh my Lord. And I actually have it on while we're doing this show. I didn't even see it. So thank you for ruining it for me, Chris. Anyways, the one thing about Frank, Tony, and it's funny, I went back and I looked at all the past Tottenham managers in, say, the last 10 years. There's so many of them. And you're talking world-class managers. I now, when it comes to that job, when it comes to the job of being Tottenham manager, the guys can understand the 3 letters NFL being National Football League. It also stands for something else, not for long, because whoever has that job is going to be out very quickly. They have no patience there. Their supporters are the most delusional supporters of any fans of any sport I've ever seen. So Thomas Frank, he'll be fortunate if he makes it a year, Tony.
Look, I think Thomas Frank is actually a good manager.
I do too.
I think he's technically and tactically, very, very astute. He knows football. He understands football. I think the problem with the Tottenham job is there are so many different strings to the bow, and it's not just about the manager, and ultimately Tottenham fans are deluded in a way, because they want to play this beautiful attacking free-flowing football, but in order to do that you've got to have the players. And the truth of the matter is I think they've got actually quite a bang average squad of players. I really do. I think when you look back over the years with Tottenham, they've always had 1 or 2 world-class players in there, that've got the ability to touch and switch a game. And at the moment, they are bang average. And when I watched the midweek against PSG, because I was PSG are one of those teams that keep the ball really well. They move into space, they break lines, they're fantastic. Tottenham defensively were an absolute shambles, and I mean shambles. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, if Marco Silva gets it right and starts Chukwueze, and by the way, who's the £40 million player, Kevin or Chukwueze?
Yeah.
Because the difference in the 2 players is like night and day. And what you want from your wide player at £40 million is everything that Chukwueze has given you or gave you yesterday, and showed the difference in the way that, as Yanis rightly said, he's composed, he's direct, he makes good decisions. There's none of this 55 step overs, try and beat a man and cut inside. He's very, very clear about what he wants and how he wants to do it. And the difference it makes to us going forward, and as you saw it yesterday, is it keeps you on the front foot, and players are making their runs straight into the box, rather than having, which Raul does most weeks when Kevin plays on that side, is he's having to redirect his runs, cut back, change his angles, because the ball never comes in. It never, ever comes in. But yesterday, we were so direct, and we got a really poor, what I think is a really poor Tottenham side. Van der Vaart, he won't stay there. There's no chance he's staying there. He'll be snapped up in 2 seasons. And trust me, I think that, we should have been 4-0. I mean, that should have been 4-0 at halftime. No question about it. We absolutely ruined Tottenham in that first half. They had no answers for it.
No, very good point there, Tony. And I'm glad that you mentioned this about Chukwueze. We've talked a lot about him, and now we got to see it the way it's supposed to look like. I'm not giving up on Kevin. I know how you feel. I still think he needs some more game time, like you mentioned as well. So we shall see. But right now, it's going to be difficult not to play Chukwueze, because he was that good and offered everything I think Fulham need from that position, as you eloquently said. Okay, guys, let's move on to another talking point. Yanis, I'll go to you first on this one. I'm going to ask a basic question. Did João Paulinho play in the match? Because I don't remember seeing him that much. And wait a minute, he did play, and he got substituted in the second half. By the way, I'm a huge Paulinho fan. Don't get me wrong, but he was missing in action in this match. Tony, what happened to João Paulinho?
God, I loved João. It broke my heart when he went to Bayern. I think Thomas Frank in a way disrespected us. yesterday with that lineup he put out, not with Paulinho, but putting Bergvall and Gray as the wide players. I looked at it and thought, you cheeky sod, two 19-year-olds, and you really think with Paulinho in the middle there, of course he's a challenge away from a red card, you're going to overrun our midfield. I thought that was a bit of a diss. Paulinho had a very, very quiet game. He has played well at times this year. I think that he's never going to admit this, but if he reflects on this, he's probably going to think that the moving to Bayern Munich was maybe the wrong move. He should have stayed at the Cottage, and we'd have loved to have kept him.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I don't wish bad for Paulinho. I just noticed that I really didn't notice him. Tony, over to you. What did you make of João in this match? And listen, he's come under a lot of scrutiny at Tottenham Hotspur since he's been there. That, the supporters, going back to the delusional thing, they want him to be something he's not. He is what he is. They want him to be more passing the ball more progressively up. That's not his role.
In my opinion, Russ, and very simply, I think Thomas Frank got it completely wrong for Tottenham yesterday. Okay. He's playing Fulham. You don't need to play João Paulinho against Fulham. I'm sorry, you don't need to play him. He's got other players on the pitch, on the bench that would have been far more effective for him in terms of, Brendan Johnson, Bentancur, even Pape Sarr would have given them more from an attacking point of view than playing a holding midfield player against Fulham. I just think that it's that sort of game that he actually didn't really need to play in. And the game that he should have played in my opinion, against PSG, he sat on the bench for. So I just think Thomas Frank, in my opinion, got it wrong. And actually did us a favour by playing Paulinho, because what it then allowed us is, with Iwobi playing that slightly deeper, it just allowed Josh King to get in behind Paulinho, and Paulinho couldn't stop him. He couldn't deal with him. His energy, he was popping up all over the place. And to be honest with you, if you look at it, Paulinho was all over the shop, didn't know where he was. He wasn't in the position that he probably should have been, certainly for the first goal, and maybe even the second goal when the goalkeeper lost his nut. So look, I was laughing when he got substituted and he got dragged off. I was actually sitting there thinking to myself, well, there you go, mate. You've made some poor decisions in your career now. And Yanis is absolutely right. He should have stayed at Fulham, because his career's gone nowhere. Really, It hasn't progressed since he left Fulham. It really hasn't. So, yeah, shame.
Yep, the grass isn't always greener, as we say. So, Hale, I want to get your thoughts on João.
I'll go one step further. He looked totally disinterested yesterday. Totally disinterested. I mean, that the shot, was it Ted? There was one shot where I don't know if it was the Tete shot or the one where Chukwueze hits the post. He was the closest player, and in the Fulham days, he'd be right on the shooter, and he just didn't seem that bothered about trying to get it. When we scored the second goal, you watch the replays back, he just shrugs his shoulders and then walks back to the center circle like he doesn't care. He looks totally disinterested. Now, I don't agree that his career's gone nowhere. He's playing Champions League football, which is what he wanted, but I just am not sure he's going to be around. It's a loan move to Spurs. I don't think they're going to pick up that loan. And where does he go from Bayern Munich? Because they're not playing him. That's why they loaned him out. So I don't know. Hey, we could see him back next season. You never know. If Marco stays, he could be back. But he looked anonymous. And as I say, my own view is he looks disinterested in playing for this Spurs side.
Interesting. And what's also interesting, Suhail, I can't remember what match it was, but he showed up at Craven Cottage. Suhail.
Yeah, I was there. I was there.
Oh, that's
it was
right,
the game that I was there because we were looking around and we could see him. Which game was it? It was early on in the season when I was there. It was one of the first couple of. Oh, it was the United game, I think. The one that we drew 1-1. But yeah, he loves the club. He loves the club. It's just. I agree with both Giannis and Tony. He made the wrong move. He should have stayed with us. And who knows?
I agree too. All right, guys, final topic of my Cottage Talk talking points. So, Hale, I'll go right back to you. Does this match speak more about how Fulham played or how badly Spurs played? Now, you can do what I would call the Kamal on the fence, a little bit of both if you want. That's your brother. Yeah. Or you can take a stand. Was this more about Fulham or more about Spurs? The reason why I'm bringing this up, is that after the match, I'm watching NBC Sports, and all they cared about, they were asked the question, was this more to do with Spurs or more to do with Fulham? Of course, it's more to do with Spurs. I disagree. This has a lot more to do with Fulham. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, the DNA doesn't run the same way in me as it does in my brother. I think if you watch the Sky Sports feed that I have some access to, even in Toronto, you would not even realize Fulham played, because the post-match analysis was all about how bad Spurs were and what they could do. And then 30 seconds at the end where they said, oh yeah, Fulham, they're not a bad team, are they? So no, I think this had more to do with certainly the first half. We played brilliantly. And we were playing, as Tony said, instead of trying to constantly just tap it around the middle. I know whether it was Iwobi being in the middle, we were playing much more direct, playing much more through balls over the top. And it had a lot more to do with how we played. Spurs are a bad team. They're not, sorry, I shouldn't say they're a bad team. They're not playing well at the moment. But this was a game where we showed, look, we can match you. Even on your best day, Spurs, we would have given you a tough game. And I think we really, the first half, 4-0 up at halftime would not have been flattering to us. In fact, I think we were quite undersold by not having those 4 goals. So, yeah, it was more about how well we played than how badly they did.
I totally agree with that. And, Tony, I want to get your thoughts. And I'm glad that Suhail brought up what was said on Sky Sports. I watched NBC Sports, and you'd be hard-pressed to hear any comments on Fulham after the match. I was just, waiting for it, and it never came because it was all about Spurs, right? It was all about that, but it takes 2 to tango, as I would say here, and Fulham made Tottenham look bad. It was the way they were set up. It's everything we've already talked about. This had a hell of a lot more to do with Fulham than it did with Spurs. I know Spurs have their issues, but Fulham took advantage of them. How about that?
Yeah, look, we unfortunately, you know what football's like, Russ. People love to talk about the so-called big guns. Look, ultimately, Marco Silva won us the game. Thomas Frank lost Tottenham the game. It's as simple as that. And I think Giannis is absolutely spot on when he says that they slightly disrespected us, and they got what they deserved, because that's not a game for Gray to play in, I'm afraid.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake.
And it's not just him, Bergville as well, young. They're young when they've got better experienced players on the bench, like, as I said, Bentancur and other players. But like I said, Tottenham defensively, Russ, they are poor. When Romero doesn't play, I mean, I know he's a kamikaze at times, but he is a leader. He does give them a bit of stability there. And Van der Ven is a better player when he's there. And I think that Danso is bang average. Porro gets caught out of position all the time, and Udogie I don't rate. I just don't think he's as good as people think he is. So, they're always going to be defensively open. But what Fulham did yesterday, Russ, is whilst they had good moments, they capitalised on those moments. Whereas maybe in previous weeks or games, when we've had those opportunities, we haven't necessarily taken those chances. Yesterday, we had 2 critical chances very early on, and Fulham took them both. And that was the difference yesterday in us getting that result.
Okay, very good. Giannis, I want to get your thoughts on this.
I think it's a bit of both. I thought Tottenham were poor. I didn't like their lineup. They're struggling at the moment. They seem to be shipping goals left, right, and centre. And they were disjointed in the first half. They were better in the second half. But first half, they were poor. We were very, very good first half, and we went a little bit in our shell in the second half. So I think it was a bit of both, and the lineups as well. I think Marco nailed it. Thomas disrespected us. But Zahel's absolutely right in terms of the Sky Sports coverage. It's all about the big clubs. It's all about what they're doing wrong, the form that they're in, the lack of luck that they're getting, and little teams like us, we never get that. But what they say at the end of the day, when the ref blows a whistle, what's the final score? 2-1. End of debate. They can cry all they want. And that's it. It was a good win for us, and really thoroughly deserved, frankly.
I totally agree. And guys, we now have finished our talking points, and I really enjoyed that part of the show. But coming up next, we're going to break down the match with both halves, and we're going to end with man of the match. Okay, guys, let's get to talking about the match itself in the first half. So let's go to a first half analysis. We'll go around to each one of you to talk about a part of it. So, Tony, I'll start with you. And my concern was that Tottenham would come out of the match really hot and they would really take it to Fulham. But what ended up happening was, like I said, the way Fulham were set up, you have the situation with Chukwueze really being dangerous. And let's go right to it. I think it was the 3rd minute you have the goal from Kenny Tete. It's a deflection, but there's a lot more to do with what Fulham did to set this up. And was it an error in pass, which I kept hearing? I don't care. It's a goal. So I want to get your thoughts on the goal, which obviously affected the rest of the match. The second one even more so, but the first one set the tone.
Yeah, look, as I said, it was a clear game plan from the first second that we kicked off. Marco Silva's intent, and Suhail talked about bravery. Fulham were brave in that first half. They were as brave as I've seen them in the last 15 years, honestly. And the fact of the matter is, as I said to you, earlier, they engaged Tottenham with that initial man-to-man press. They literally jumped on them. And what happened is Tottenham were trying to get higher up the pitch, which allowed our wide players to get in behind. Right. And when we talk about runners getting in behind, that's what Chukwueze and Wilson were doing constantly. And it was causing Tottenham all kinds of problems. And in that first 10 minutes, obviously, when we've got a grip of the game, Tottenham didn't know what to do. They were absolutely baffled by what was happening. I don't think they expected it. I don't think they thought that we were going to come out as brave as we did. And then obviously no one expected Chukwueze to play the way that he did. He was on fire. I mean, so yeah, and in that sort of 6 minutes really sort of took the steam out of the game a little bit, because Tottenham had a mountain to climb once Wilson put that second goal away. And it was all going to be a case about how well Fulham were going to defend from that point on, whether they were still going to continue to be brave. Yes, there was a drop-off in the second half, but there was a reason for that. And ultimately, like I said, it should have been 3 or 4 us. And that would have been a fair reflection on our dominance in that first 45 minutes.
So what's funny about this, and we're going to talk about the rest of the half, I actually was listening to a Tottenham perspective on this match and basically shelled out or laid it out that they gifted us 2 goals. I actually don't look at it that way. These are not gifts. They were earned. And especially when we talk about the second. So, I'm going to go to you in 1 second to talk about the second one. These weren't gifts, Tony. They earned the goals. I hate that analogy. And it's basically not giving enough credit to us.
We forced Tottenham into mistakes.
Exactly.
We forced them into mistakes.
They're not gifts.
Correct. And if players make poor decisions, then that's got to be, a kudos to the side that's forcing them into making those decisions. The second goal was we forced the goalkeeper into making a poor decision. Right. He panicked, and that was a poor decision. But let me tell you, if Ronaldo would have scored that goal, they'd be talking about it for months. Right. Because let me tell you, Harry Wilson still had a hell of a lot to do.
That was an incredible goal. Yeah. And we're going to talk about that.
We'll come on to it. But so, yeah, we forced them into errors. And at the end of the day, if you force players into errors, they make mistakes. As long as you capitalize on them, then, that's what happens. And we capitalized on those errors.
Absolutely. And Suhail, I'll now go to you. And I want to get your thoughts on the goal, because like I said, I'm hearing that Fulham were gifted these goals. This second one, this has to do with intent by us forcing an error and then capitalizing on it, as Tony just said. And I'm glad that he mentioned what Harry Wilson had to do. Don't forget what Josh King did here.
Yeah,
Josh King set up Harry Wilson. And then, of course, you got Raul. There are a lot of people that were involved in this situation to get the goal. This is not a gift. This is an earned goal.
No, and it also it shows the sort of touch of arrogance of Vicario, right? And this is what I think, I was looking back at that and thinking, why on earth would Vicario do what he did? Like, do you think against Liverpool or Arsenal he would do that? He'd probably kick it into the stands there. I think he thought, it's only Fulham. I'll find a way of, keeping this in touch, showing them what a great goalkeeper I am. And of course, he passes it straight back to us. And I'm glad you mentioned Josh King. People are forgetting that. It's King who looks up and sees Wilson. And who else do you want at the end of that? I didn't even think Wilson was going to shoot. I thought he was going to lob it into the... And when he just whips it round, I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. My wife was in the kitchen. I think she was startled when I sort of roared the goal. It was just so unexpected. But wow, not a gift in the slightest. That was pure, as you say. We forced them into that. Yep. Vicario gets arrogant. And then we capitalized on the arrogance by scoring what I think was a really skillful goal. And I think, on other occasions that might have gone wide, or might have gone over the bar, but he really whipped it. He's playing with such confidence now, Harry. That was a great goal. And, anyone who says it's again, that just goes to show the arrogance and the delusion of these Spurs fans who think they should be one or two in the Premier League. Sorry, folks, you might be one or two, but it could be one or two at the bottom of the league. So anyway, great goal. I loved it.
I think they're forgetting that they were, 17th last season.
Yeah, but they're European champions. That's what they keep singing. We're champions of Europe.
Exactly. And by the way, I kept hearing that we lost to a team that's going to end 15th. And I'm like, okay, maybe we will. But what did they end up last? Like I said, the delusion.
They can console themselves with 16th, Russ. That's what we'll say.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right, Mr. Janaeus, I'm going to go to you now. And actually, a part that I really want to talk about, because again, it's going to go to talk about the opportunities Fulham were creating. I'm glad the guys talked about the goals, but now I want to talk about the rest of the half and what Fulham were doing here. And Tony did a great job of talking a little bit about the game plan, but there were two phenomenal opportunities from Samuel Chukwueze. Hits the post on one of them, Giannis, and the other one, full credit to Mickey Van de Ven, because if he doesn't do what he does and isn't careful, there's a penalty, but Fulham could have been up 4-0. That shows the dominance. Giannis, I want to get your thoughts on the opportunities Fulham created after the 2-0 lead. They didn't sit on it.
No, they didn't. That was the first one was a really nice cutting by Chuk and hit the outside of the post. Vicario was well beaten there. And I think it was mentioned earlier about Van de Ven. He shouldn't be at Tottenham. He's wasted there. I'm sorry. World-class defender. I think he's the quickest defender in the Premier League. It might have been a bit lucky if they'd looked at the replays about the hand on the ball, but that was a superb challenge on Chuk. And I've got to mention one other thing. Going back to that second goal.
Yep.
It's one of the best team goals I've seen us score in years.
Thing,
in years. And let's not forget, it started with Anderson. Yep. It was an Anderson long ball that was knocked towards Jimenez, and Jimenez wouldn't stop chasing, and he forced the mistake into Vicario for King to knock it back to Wilson. It was a thing of utter beauty. Just got to say that I was screaming up and down here in the living room. It was brilliant to watch. But yeah, we could have been 4-0 up, and the scoreline wouldn't have flattered us. Frankly, we dominated, and but for Van de Ven. It could have, it could have been a cricket score. And by the way, why weren't there any Tottenham defenders standing on the line for the second goal?
That's something that I keep hearing about. I don't know. I don't know the answer for that.
Yeah, a bit weird. He was jumping up and down, yelling at the defenders. Well, he sort of has a point. Somebody at least has to be the last line of defense there. But anyway, tough on them.
All right, guys. So Fulham go into the half. It's at halftime. They're up 2-0. Tony, before we talk about the second half, I think I might have mentioned this to you or someone else. I still wasn't feeling overly confident, even though how well we played. I was feeling like they should have been up by more. What were you feeling at halftime?
Yeah, of course. You're thinking the game should have been done and dusted. It should have been over, and it would have been over. And then obviously this is Fulham, Russ. So you always have that seed in the doubt, in the back of your mind, thinking all it's going to take is Tottenham to get one, and then then it's going to be squeaky bum time, and it's going to happen. And to be honest, that did sort of happen to a degree, but I never felt at any point that we were in danger of throwing it away, if that makes sense. Well, yeah. I think we always looked solid, but in terms of the second half, the reason why there was a drop off is because we worked so hard in that first half. Some of the players were physically drained. And I think that where Marco Silva maybe could have reacted a little bit quicker is made those changes a little bit earlier. And just to get that, that freshness in and he left it quite late again, as usual. 68 minutes, was it, when he brought on the first. So we started to drop into a deeper block after the second half, where we looked more like a 5-3-2.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that gave Tottenham a little bit of confidence. Okay, do you know what? Fulham are now sitting deep. Now we can get them. And when you start dropping deep, if you give players like Kudos the opportunities to start running at you, then you're opening yourself up to problems. And that's what happened second half. We started to open ourselves up to situations where, Tottenham couldn't get that momentum in the first half because we were the one on the front foot. We were the one that were taking the game to them.
Okay, very good. And that's a great way to really get us going, talk about the second half. And so, Hale, I'll go back to you. And unfortunately, I'm going to give you the honors. Really not much of an honor to talk about the goal from Cottage. But, it's funny. This was described, I don't know if I would call it against the run of play. I don't think it was. But it's not like they were creating a lot of things. They were just, I knew that they were coming at Fulham in the second half, and that they started to really emphasize that. But the goal itself, this is just a good goal. Well, what did you make of the goal given up by Fulham and the goal from Cottage?
Well, if you want to talk about gifts, that was a gift, because you look at we were under some pressure, but Spurs, the warning signs had started because Moani had sort of headed wide in the first minute of the second half. So it looked like they were beginning to come to life. But then you'll recall we were under some pressure, but the ball, they couldn't get past our defense. And this really annoys me. I've said this on previous podcasts. I have no idea why Fulham can't just boot the ball clear down the other end of the field. So what happens is Wilson gets the ball. The ball comes out. I think the defense clears it.
Yep.
The ball comes to Wilson. And instead of just booting it clear, it's sort of in his DNA to try and pass it to somebody. And so he passes it. I think he's trying to get it to Jimenez. It goes straight back to a Spurs player. And that's the gift I'm talking about. So all you Spurs fans, you think you gifted us goals? This was a gift to you. It went to them, and that was then played back in to Kudos. Can't argue with the finish. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, it was a fantastic rocket of a shot that Leno had no chance with. He could never get to that. So that was the problem. But I just wish Marco would tell his players, look, in those situations, boot the ball clear. I'm not going to hold it against you if you don't find another Fulham player, because I was really frustrated with that. And if we'd held out another 15 minutes, Russ, I don't think they'd have scored. That was the big thing. So.
Yeah, that was basically a turning point in the match. A turning point in the match was the goal. I'm glad that you brought that up so Helen. And Giannis, I want to go to you. It's funny. I was actually a little surprised, but I guess like we're talking about with Thomas Frank, he's under pressure. He decides to make a triple change. Whenever I see a triple change, I'm thinking, the manager's getting a little bit desperate here. What did you make of his decision to make the triple change? I'm talking about Frank and where Fulham were at this point before Marco makes his substitutions, because Fulham were getting deeper and deeper.
I thought we looked comfortable until that goal. But Zale's absolutely right. I was frothing. What is Wilson? The ball's gone wide. There's a saying, if the ball's going to go wide, keep it wide. But he's not. He's knocked the ball in the middle. He's knocked it back in the middle. It's a needless pass. He's got no options. He's given it away and they've scored. It was a gift. It was a gift. Yep. And I think when Marco looks at the tape tomorrow, he's probably going to be frothing, because that's such an avoidable goal. You're not in any sort of danger. You've been closed down. Okay, just thump it down the touch line. Just get it down the line. And instead, he tries this pretty play inside, and one thing is another. Great finish by Kudus. Don't get me wrong, but it's a mistake. It's a gift, And it didn't. The subs didn't bother me. They really didn't, because look, if their starting 11 wasn't going to really bother us. Simons has been a disaster for them, as an example. They were Betancourt on, that didn't bother me either. I thought, it's not, and they took Richarlison off, who's always capable of a goal at the best of times. And once I saw he went off, I thought, they're not going to do anything to us. I kept thinking in the game, we're only going to be pinned back if we make a mistake. And that mistake that was it.
That was it. That was a mistake. But you know what? Like I said, after that, back over to you, Tony. We have the substitutions for Marco, which I think, like I said, have to give Marco a lot of credit, because I think he fixed what was not working, and he made the substitutions. Like you were saying, they worked so hard. He needed to do this earlier, but he does it, and I think this was what really made the difference. Fulham seeing the match out were the substitutions, Tony.
Yeah, look, I think I personally would have made them, 10 minutes earlier, certainly after Tottenham scored. I think that's the point. You look at it and think, okay, physically, some players are struggling a little bit or not up to the level that they should be. So I had no issue with Josh King and Harry Wilson coming off at that point. I think Emil Smith-Rowe gave another really good performance from my perspective, and he's showing the manager now that actually, he's pushing for a start and he wants to start, and I think he's showing that hunger, and actually, he's got some good case now for him to be looking at potentially being slotted in at some point, because I said to you, to see the best of Smith-Rowe, he's got to be playing. Yep. And we deserve to see the best of him, is the honest truth. But bringing on Sasha Lukic, I think just steadied the ship a little bit in midfield. And so those two subs, I think at that point were critical for us, because it gave just a little bit of freshness in areas where we were getting a little bit stretched and a little bit open.
All right. What did you make of bringing Kevin on for Chukwueze? I think Chukwueze just ran out of gas.
Yeah, he ran his race. I mean, look, 81 minutes, he's done his job. And you know what? When you get a player like Kevin coming on, it's one of those you don't know what you're going to get. So he's going to bring something different. He's quite tricky, and he's a sort of player that you don't want running at you with 10 minutes to go if you've been a fullback on the game for the whole game and you're tired and you've got someone like him coming at you. So again, I think it was a good move. It gives him a different option. But obviously, from Kevin's perspective, 9 minutes in that sort of game to sort of get involved and get him, into it is quite difficult.
Okay, very good. All right. So guys, let's finish up just talking about how Fulham saw the matchup and how you were feeling in the later stages. And I want to mention Castagna came on as well, which I, again, wasn't against that move either. Giannis, how did you feel Fulham saw the matchup? Did you feel threatened that they were going to get the equalizer? Or how did you feel at the end of the match?
No, I felt comfortable. I thought unless we gave up another error, I didn't think they were going to create a lot. There was lots of huffing and puffing, but they weren't really doing a lot to blow the house down. They flattered to deceive, frankly. I thought 80 minutes on, I thought we started to get more of the ball, and I thought we were more comfortable. We managed the injury time well. The mandatory Bernd Leno yellow card, which I always love. I always love it. Just so much fun. If we've got a lead, he's going to get a yellow. That's it. Right. I thought we looked very comfortable at the end, and without any complaints, really.
Okay, so Hal, how about you? How were you feeling there at the end?
Well, I'm a Fulham fan. I'm never not going to be nervous, especially at 2-1. Chris Goodwin, good point where he said, did they have any chances after the goal? Yeah, they did. They had that. I think it was Bergval's header that was headed off the line by Jimenez.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so I'm always nervous. When we're 2-1 up. I've had too many experiences, especially in the last couple of seasons, where we've given up late goals. But I have to agree with both Giannis and Tony. We actually did look a lot very comfortable when he brought the subs on. And it wasn't just Lukic. I think Emil Smith-Rowe added a threat. He links up really well with Kevin and with Chukwueze. He's a really good player. And I agree with Tony. He's beginning to say, hey, listen, you should be playing me more often. Because he was getting into threatening positions, playing passes out to players where in a threatening position, always moving forward and behind the defense, which is something that we don't have too often. I won't lie to you. I was nervous, and I always will be nervous when we're defending a 1-goal lead. But I thought we did very well, and I thought the subs really did sort of like take a grip of the game.
Okay, excellent. Tony, I want to give you a final word on this. How are you feeling at the end? I know you fairly well, and you're a Fulham supporter. So how are you feeling?
Yeah, the nerves are always there because 2-1 is a dangerous, it's a dangerous scoreline to be holding on to. But to put the game into context, Fulham still were they had the most defensive involvement in the whole game. So Tottenham weren't that bad going forward. It's just that Fulham defended well yesterday for the first time in a long time. Tete, Sessegnon, Anderson had the most defensive involvements in the whole game. They made the most tackles, the most interceptions, the most clearances. And that tells you everything you need to know. So Tottenham weren't, they were knocking on the door, but Fulham defended as a unit really, really well. And as I said, there were some exceptional performances yesterday from Fulham. And that's how you want your team to defend. The goal was the goal, as everyone said. It was a gift, absolutely. That could have been dealt with in many different ways. But actually, in terms of the control, I never felt that Tottenham were, I didn't feel that we had that mistake in us yesterday, if that made sense. I think as individuals in the areas that they were playing, they defended those areas really well.
Okay, very good. All right, guys, let's finish up with man of the match. And you can mention who your man of the match is. And if you're watching live, feel free to share. And if you got someone else you want to single out, please do as well. Giannis, who was your man of the match?
Kenny.
Okay.
Thought he was brilliant. Yes. Thought he was absolutely brilliant. And there's a lot of mentions of that. Joachim played really well. I thought Cess played really well.
Cess played exceptional.
Yeah, ESR played really well when he came on. Chuk obviously had a very, very good game. But Kenny just solid as a rock.
Okay. So Gary's giving it to Marco. I actually gave it to Marco last night. But, just because but if I'm looking at a player, I think Chukwueze's a good shot. There are so many. Let's see. Chris, do you have to always give it to a former Liverpool player? He gives it to Harry. Of course he does. Oh, and Gary has to give the obligatory Andreas Pereira, of course. Okay. Suhail, who was your man of the match?
Chukwueze was my man of the match, but I would, and Wilson was obviously up there, but I would also give an honourable mention to Sander Berge, who very quietly played a big role in that first half, the attacking impetus. He was right in the middle, stopping the Spurs players coming forward, and had a large part to play at times, not just stifling the attacks, but moving the game forward. He was a real honourable mention, but Chukwueze, to me, no doubt about it, he terrified the Spurs defense, just terrified them, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in the future. Okay, very good. Tony, I think you've already tweeted this out. Ryan Sessegnon, was he your man of the match?
Yeah, look, I think that Tete was excellent. I think his tenacity yesterday was great. I can see why people would give it to him. Anderson, I thought actually one of his best games for us in a long time. He just seemed to be on the end of everything. He was in the right place at the right time, doing what centre-halves do. Chukwueze, obviously, excellent. Harry Wilson, excellent. But for me, I'm going with my heart, Russ, because I thought, for Ryan Sessegnon to go back to Tottenham yesterday and to put in... He what an engine that boy has. I mean, his endurance and his energy. Anthony who? Anthony who? Because I'm telling you now,
Marco has an issue.
When he doesn't have an issue. There's no issue. Robinson doesn't get back into this Fulham side. He doesn't. It's as simple as that. And to go back to Tottenham and play that way and put in that performance for me, and to have Kudos on, I know Kudos had a little bit, but he kept him quiet for most of the game. The majority of the game, he marked him out the game. I thought Ryan Sessegnon was absolutely tremendous yesterday, and he deserves that man of the match. So for me, I'm going for Ryan.
Okay, he's going for Ryan. Let's work off this because we've talked about it before. Suhail, what happens when Anthony Robinson is fit and ready to come back? Tony says all day long right now, I'm paraphrasing, it's Ryan Sessegnon's job.
I agree with Tony. I think Anthony Robinson is going to have to fight for his place back in that team. And don't get me wrong, it's funny. The commentators yesterday were talking about the lack of squad depth in the Fulham side, and I was looking at the bench thinking, that is not a bad bench. I don't know what they're talking. These cliches they come out with. So I think Sessegnon, I agree with Tony. He's the number one starter for the left back. Robinson's going to have to find his way back in. And I will say this. What on earth did Spurs do to him when he was...
Exactly.
What on earth did they do to him? Because he was a free transfer. People are forgetting that.
It is insane.
Transfer. Yeah, Ryan for me at the moment. So
okay, Giannis, I'll give you final word on this.
If I could find a way to get both of them in the lineup, I'd do it.
Of course, you.
I think Sessegnon has been absolutely magnificent, and I love Anthony Robinson. Yeah. I mean, if you could find a way to get them both in, if providing Robinson's 100%, right, I'd do it. It'd be tough on Robinson if he can't get in, but when Sess is playing this well, I think Marco has to find a way. I don't know how he's going to do it.
I'll tell you, Kamar's leaving his mark here. Everyone's going on that. Even Giannis is now going on the fence here on the difficult questions. So,
I know. I know. No. Listen, I get it. He's pulling a Kamal.
I think, Russell, to be fair, I think the argument is, have we looked better defensively with Ryan Sessegnon in at left back? And the answer is 100% yes, we have.
Okay.
That's not even in doubt. So yes, we've lost a little bit of what Robertson gives us potentially going forward. But to be honest with you, I think Ryan Sessegnon has been just as effective in those areas, but not as kamikaze as Robertson can be. Okay. He doesn't get caught out of possession as much. And I just think solid, and it's been shown. I think it's been shown. We're not conceding as many daft goals or silly goals as we were certainly last season. So the argument is actually at the moment, Ryan Sessegnon has been doing better in that position.
Okay. So it's funny. Gary Cooper agrees with you, Tony. He says Robinson, great going forward, awful defending. So, Giannis, I want to go back to you. What do you make of? Well, let's pose it this way: they're both great players. Okay, who's the better defender, Giannis?
Sess is at the moment. I don't think there's any doubt. But Robinson gives you that factor. That's why if there was a way I could put him in the lineup, I would.
I know.
I just think he's that good. He's so good coming forward. Yep. But then Sess has done admirably. So it's a great problem to have.
Absolutely.
For sure.
It is. It's actually a very good problem, Suhail. That's why I kind of want to bring. I mean, these are the topics I think about, and I want to bring to Cottage Talk because I'm thinking what happens when he is able to come back, and then to Tony's point, I'm going to agree with all of you. The better defender, hands down, is Sessegnon. He's the better defender. But to Giannis's point, if you're looking at overall football or overall player or and again, what he offers going forward is a lot. So it's a hard one.
Totally. You know what? The thing that I would say is, I think Gary Cooper said it the better way. I'm not so sure he's a better defender than Robinson. Yesterday, he was getting turned inside out a couple of times by Kudos. He's just got a better footballing brain. He actually knows where to go, better positioning. Robinson's great asset is his speed. He can, flies. Whereas Sess may not be as fast, but he just gets into the right positions. He's got that footballing brain, and I think that's where he really has the edge over Anthony Robinson.
Okay. Gary, you got to go here with this just because he's an American, Russ. Okay, whatever.
Oh, God.
Okay, very good. No, I'm happy with all commentary. That's what makes this show go, my friend. All right, fantastic show. We've gone a little over an hour. I want to get final thoughts from you guys, and we'll wrap it up. Giannis, great show. Final thoughts before we go. Do you want to talk about Man City?
Yeah, looking forward to City. We've got a City and Palace coming up. And the City game, I think, the Cottage should be rocking. We've got nothing to lose. I fancy we can get something out of this Tuesday. We've got some confidence now. Okay. 2 games in a row.
Okay. Tony's already got me thinking 8th because he brought that up and I told him to shut the F up. But okay, fine. You're doing it too?
I think, we've got nothing to lose. And I think this is not the City of old. It's not the City of old, Russ.
Okay. You guys are going to get me to believe. I can't do this. Suhail, final thoughts before we go.
Chris Goodwin, Fulham 2, Man City 0. Chris, I really hope you're the son of Nostradamus because that would be an amazing, thing. I'm very nervous about that game. But you know what? We've got 2 home games coming up. I see Palace lost today to Manchester United, a very ordinary United. I'm not scared of either of these 2 games. I'm not saying we're going to win both, but I think the City game's a free hit, and I agree with both Tony and Giannis. They are there for the taking, and if we play the right way, we can get something from that game.
Okay. My head is going to explode. You started this, Tony. You started this with getting in my head with Man City. What are you doing to me? I don't want to believe that, but okay, go ahead.
Look, it's as Giannis said, it's a free hit Tuesday night. Absolutely free hit. Fulham have got nothing to lose, nothing to fear. The great news is Wolves, Forest and West Ham all lost today. Yes. So it's a complete free hit Tuesday night. And actually, you know what? We can go out there and play with freedom, enjoy it. And whatever happens, as long as then on Saturday we get the performance against Palace, because that's really important. But yeah, look, why not? This is, as Giannis says, it's not the City of old. They are definitely vulnerable. And if Fulham play like they did yesterday, certainly first half, then they will give anybody problems, Russ. Anybody in this division will get, will have problems.
Okay, Gary, You have to stop with the Andres Pereira stuff. I can't. Okay. Everyone's just trying to tick me off right now. Okay, whatever. Anyway, honestly, seriously, guys, this has been a pleasure. Wonderful show. Great show. Thank you having all of you on. I've mentioned this and I'll end it this way. This is a combination show. It's a Fulham Canada show and a Rough and the Smooth. It's like a combination of the two. I loved every minute of it. But we do have to wrap this up. For Tony Gold, Jan Shanez, and Suhail, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.